Good morning, Trondheim friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Patio Ponderings. Today, my patio is back at Trondheim Lutheran Church. I'm underneath the front awning, and it's clouding up and it's getting breezy as we expect rain today and over the next few days. And it sounds so wonderful to be expecting some refreshment and some easing of this drought and the suffering it's causing on this earth and to our creation. And that is the subject of our conversation today, is suffering. On Sunday, we heard the story of Job. Just in quick summary, in the story of Job, Job loses his livestock, his flocks and his herds. He loses his servants. He loses his children. And with all of that, he loses his livelihood. Only his wife remains with him, and then if that's not all enough, he loses his health too, and he suffers with sores all over his body. And the book of Job brings up all the big questions about suffering and why we suffer. And why does God allow suffering? And what we found in our discussions about Job on Sunday is that we don't know. It's a mystery, and it's not within our human capacity to understand. That's what the scriptures and the poem that we read out of Job revealed to us on Sunday. But what we did learn, and the good news that we heard from Job, is that no matter what, God is present in our suffering. And we hear that through Job's proclamation in Job chapter 19. He says, "For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, then in my flesh I shall see God." This is a cosmic proclamation on Job's part. It is bigger than just what he's experiencing in that particular time and place. That Job feels he may not survive this suffering, but God's love, God's presence extends past this life. And therefore, there's no suffering of this life that is bigger than God. That at some point, God conquers all, and God relieves all suffering. And as we go through it, God lives. And we talked Sunday about author Kate Bowler. Kate Bowler is a PhD. She is a professor of religion at Duke University. And when she was in her mid-30s, an accomplished professional, wife, and mother of a toddler, she developed stage 4 cancer, and the outlook was not good at all. And she wrote a book about her experience with cancer called "Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies That I've Loved," and how she expresses what Job did in his story. Really briefly, from a quote in an interview that she gave, she said, "I think the great surprise for me is that God is there no matter what. When I was in the hospital, God was somehow there." Now here's the interesting thing about God's presence, is so often we don't realize God's presence. We don't see God's work in our lives until it's in the rearview mirror. So often it's only looking back at our experiences once we've moved through them that we can see God's presence and we can see what God was up to. And so that's the first thing I'm wondering if you could ponder with me is, in times when you have suffered, when it seems like one thing after another piles on in your lives, and you've gotten through that, how were you able to look back and see God at work in your lives? But here's the thing that I really wonder about, and that I've been thinking about this week, is what would it be like to see God's presence in the midst of the suffering, to not have to wait until we can see it in hindsight? How might we recognize God's work in the midst of what is happening in our lives. So that's the big point to ponder this week. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But know that what Job proclaimed in faith, we know for certain. Jesus Christ is our Redeemer. He lived, He died, and He was raised again for us so that we might indeed live with Him for all eternity. And that truly is the good news. Well, thanks for joining me in this episode of Patio Ponderings. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the wet refreshment of the rain that is coming to us in the next few days. And hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. Bye.